So today's cardinal lesson, we're going to show you a way that you can control the payout of your assets beyond your lifetime. So a beneficiary restricted payout, and this is many times referred to as the middle class trust because it's easy and it's inexpensive. Now I want to put it to Tom to talk about like why we're doing this show today.
Yeah, I mean, I think we have a lot of clients come in that have concern of leaving their money in a lump sum to their beneficiaries. They might be worried about, whoever that is, being a spendthrift, like not spending it well, like blowing it all at once. They could be worried about sort of investment management, right? Maybe this person isn't as savvy with their investments as the person who's doing the planning is. And they're worried about just leaving it to them. They don't know what to do. And there's some concern there. So there's all sorts of reasons why you might want this. But what that sort of leads into is a lot of times people say, oh, you can use a trust to do that. And so trust is a legal document. It gives you some post death control over the money. However, they can be expensive to use and they can be complicated, right? I mean, we know how to use them. We do this business. A lot of times people who get named as the trustee, and that's who controls with the money inside the trust, they have no idea what that even is. Like they don't know what that role is. They don't know what their responsibility is. And they're like, what is this? And so it causes a lot more headache a lot of times than it's really worth. Or you can hire a professional trustee, which again is really expensive. And so what we want to do today is really show you an easy way to give you still some post-death control over that money without having to go through the complications of needing a trust. And so I'll bring up the show notes here. These are at the link below our video. They're also on our website on the show notes section. We have the board. You can print it out, look at it more closely, and then this next set of forms is actually the beneficiary form that would be filled out if you were doing something like this. And so we'll get more into the details on the board, but you can see all the different options and selections that you can choose on this beneficiary form that again gives you some control over this money once you have passed. And so let me bring Hans back on and we'll get going here.
Yeah, I mean, we've had settlement options in life insurance policies and in annuity contracts. I've been in the business 48 years and I've studied them, read about them. I've used them in a few rare instances, but for the most part, we don't talk about this, is that people buy life insurance, they name a beneficiary, and when they die, I've handled a lot of life insurance claims. I'm just bringing a big check out to the beneficiary and go here and see you later. And they're usually thrilled. A lot of beneficiaries have no idea how to deal with that much money. And so um, what what we can do now is we've got a form that we can use right when we write the policy, whether it's an annuity or a life insurance policy, that stipulates, you get to stipulate exactly how this money is paid to the beneficiary. So what I listed is really three reasons for this. Is one is spendthrifts. People are concerned that their kids or whoever they're leaving the money to is just going to not know how to deal with that amount of money and they're just going to spend it and it's all going to be gone in a few years. Talking about investment management, this is more common in what we deal in our practice is we're dealing with the one spouse who makes all the financial decisions, does the investments. They're dealing with us through the financial planning and we're just kind of explaining to the spouse. And then this person is saying, I want to make sure he or she is taken care of after I'm gone. And that's where, the younger Tom comes in our practice is that, and we have several mini Toms that work with us that, so they're in their 30s and they're going to be in their 50s and 60s when our clients are in their 80s and 90s. So when we're looking after the spouse, there a lot of people are genuinely concerned is he or she's not going to know what to do with all of this money. And so sure, you have us as investment managers, but you can stipulate in this middle class trust or essentially to the beneficiary exactly how this is going to be paid out. So there's times when we use that and recommend that. Then the other thing is that when people are presented with a large amount of money and they don't even know where to put it, they get plenty of help from their relatives and friends who are going to bring these investment opportunities to them, or somebody that they know that wants to invest $100,000 in this, you're going to get paid back many times over. This gives you or your beneficiaries protection from all of that stuff. Okay, so when we get to the form that Tom showed you in the show notes, is first of all, you don't have to put all the money in the settlement option. You can do a partial lump sum. So you could, if it say it was a $500,000 life insurance policy or a $500,000 in an annuity, you could provide 100,000 to them right up front and take the other 400,000 and pay it out to them over time. Is the IRA, if this is IRA money that's in this insurance contract, which would be an annuity, the maximum payout term is 9 years, and that's because of the 10-year rule. So your beneficiary will be under. This can take care of that, where you make sure that your beneficiary doesn't really have to deal with knowing the 10-year rule and how to take out. You can just take this, mark 9 years on the form, and when your beneficiary, they're just going to get 9 payments spread over 9 years, and then the thing account's going to be empty by the end of the 10th year. It makes it qualifying with the beneficiary rules right from the beginning. For non-qualified, which is anything but IRA, which is going to be life insurance policies, and then many annuities, we never even mess with IRAs. We're just taking regular money and putting them in there. And you really have 3 options or 3 categories of option. One is a life annuity with no period certain. So that would be that they're just going to take whatever the settlement is, the insurance company, they're going to calculate the life expectancy and send a monthly check and for the rest of their life, which may kind of work okay for this example down here, which we're going to go over in a sec, because this guy's 48 years old now. If his father passed away soon, he might live to 95. And so you're going to get the most amount under this thing, where the insurance company is going to come out ahead if the guy only lives the beneficiary only lives a couple, 3 years after his death, but they're going to come out way behind if this person lives 40 more years. So that's an option. I don't usually recommend this option too often unless there's a reason. The next one is the more desirable. It's a life annuity with a period certain. So what that simply says is we're going to pay the beneficiary this amount for the rest of their life. But if they don't live 10 years, if you pick the 10-year period certain, then somebody will get, the contingent beneficiary will get, say they live 6 years, then those 4 more years of payments will go to the contingent beneficiary. And then the last one is where you take the life contingency out of it and you just say, I don't want this based upon their life expectancy. You're just going to put it there and you're going to say they're going to get 20 years of payments or 10 years of payments, regardless of how long they live. So if they live past that, the payments stop. And you're going to get significantly more from this because the insurance company doesn't have the risk of this person to live into 95. But any one of these 3 work in various situations. We're financial planners, so this is what we're doing. We're planning beyond your lifetime and getting into the lifetime of your beneficiaries. And the payout frequency can be monthly, quarterly, semi-annual, or annual. We typically choose monthly because that just lets the person spend the money because they know there's a check next month and another month and then so on and so forth. But in any case, that's going to be your option. And so what I'd like to do is move into the example phase. We've got 3 examples today of case studies. And this one particular is that Mike is 73 and Stephanie is 70. And Stephanie is not Mike's wife. Mike is a confirmed bachelor and Stephanie is his significant other. They live in separate places. They spend a lot of their time together. Mike has no kids. He's got between a $2 and $3 million net worth. His home is worth about $500,000. And he doesn't want to leave all this money to Stephanie for a number of reasons. One of which is he's just concerned that people will come to her offering to help her and all of a sudden the money's going to be gone and she's going to be 80 years old or something. That's a concern. He's also concerned is she doesn't know what to do with that amount of money like he does. He's a pretty savvy investor. And so what his desire was is to leave his house to her. And he lives in a state where they have these ladybird deeds. So he can actually put a beneficiary on his house and it's her. So she's going to get the house. She still has some money on her own, not a lot. And she's got a social security check that is much smaller than his. And so when we did some work with Mike, he figured that he would like to leave her a $40,000 a year income that would last the rest of her life. And so what we did is we calculated, well, how much money is she going to need to receive, or we're going to have in the insurance company that we can generate a $40,000 a year income if he died right away. And that number is $430,000. Now, we could use life insurance if Mike was healthy, but Mike has some health problems that are going to make life insurance prohibitive. So we're going to use an annuity, and we put $430,000 in there. And if he died within 6 months or just quickly, that for under this payout option, the life annuity period certain, in a period certain of 10 years, she would get 40,000 a year for life, paid by the insurance company, paid out monthly. It's wonderful. And so now, if Mike lives to 80 and Stephanie is now 73, she's going to actually get more. Excuse me, Stephanie is 77. She's going to get more than 40,000 a year for life because this 430,000 in the annuity has grown, so it's a larger sum. And then she has a shorter life expectancy at 77 than she did at 70. So this has a natural inflation element built into it. Also, if Stephanie were to pass before Mike, he could simply change the beneficiary on this thing. That's his option the whole time he's alive. Um, and so I've already gone over the life insurance. The life income would get larger the longer Mike lives. And so what he's doing with the rest of his money is he's leaving it to charity. And I thought that was pretty cool. Is he just doesn't want somebody blowing his money. He wants to make sure Stephanie's well taken care of. He provides a lot for her in terms of fun and different things, and they spend a lot of time at his house. So he's taking care of her, and he's been able to leave the rest of this to charity. Now I want to pass it to Tom, and I want Tom to tell you a little bit about Joe and Tom.
Yeah, so in the second example, we have Joe, who's the father, who's 80, and then Tom, who's the son, who's 48. So this is not me. I'm not the Tom in the example, but you get the point here. And so the father, Joe, is concerned about Tom, who's the spendthrift. His whole life he has not been good with money. He blows through it quickly. Anytime he gets his hand on something, he's out buying something new, and he really doesn't want to leave a lot of money in a lump sum directly to Tom. And so what Joe did is he has a life insurance policy with a death benefit of $500,000. So he knows the amount that's going to go to Tom in this example. And what he put on there was a life income for Tom. So he gets a check for the rest of his life with a 10-year period certain. And so again, if Tom lives to be in his 90s, he's getting a check every month until that point. But if he's at least someone is going to get a check for that 10 years at the very minimum. So in this scenario, Tom isn't super healthy. He hasn't made a lot of great life choices. And so there's a chance that Tom could die kind of soon after Joe does. I mean, we just don't know. We don't have that crystal ball. So we wanted to put that 10-year period certain on there. So if Tom does, die within, say, 5 years after Joe does, then the contingent beneficiary, you'd have named someone else, would continue to get that check for at least the rest of that 10-year period of time. Now, if Tom does live, if he sort of gets his life together, he does live a long time, he's going to get a check for the rest of his life. But this really is a way to prevent Tom from getting this $500,000, spending it all at once, and just being broke, after a couple of years. And so this is a great way to do that, and a very easy way to do it as opposed to setting up a trust. In our third example, we have George and Mary. It's a couple. They're married. They're both on Social Security. George is getting $4,500 a month from Social Security. Mary is getting $1,800 a month from Social Security. And so their real desire was to have that income continue for the rest of both of their lives. Now, if you've watched our other videos, you might know this, but with Social Security, when the first spouse passes away, regardless of which one it is, that lower check stops. So if George dies first, Mary would continue getting the 4,500, but her 1,800 stops. And then if Mary dies first, her 1,800 stops. So that lower check stops at the death of the first spouse. And in their scenario, that was going to be problematic because they need both of those checks to live on. And so what we set up is an annuity that has this contingency, this life contingency on it that would, we do all the math to come up with the numbers, but essentially it was designed to pay an additional $1,800 a month upon the death of the first spouse. And so it allows them to keep that income consistent, keep it stable, allow them to not have to sort of cut back on their lifestyle when the first spouse passes away. And it's a way to do it without having to worry about trust, without having to worry about sort of the mismanagement of the money, right? In this scenario, George is the one who does a lot of the investing. He's the one more in all of this. Mary she's like, how much can I spend this month? And that's what I'll do. She doesn't want to worry about this. She doesn't want to think about it. This is a way to have that check guaranteed for the rest of her life if George was the one who predeceases her. So again, there's all sorts of scenarios we could show you how this works. But at the end of the day, this is a great way, an easy way to set up something that gives you some control after you have passed on the money, as opposed to leaving it as a lump sum to your named beneficiary.
Well, yeah, and so we deal with a lot of estates or people coming to us where they are the beneficiary or they're coming to us for financial planning anyhow. And when you're think about, we have a lot of brothers and sisters that leave money to each other, and we have nephews and nieces that are beneficiaries of their uncle or aunt. And if you just think about it, is when they receive a big lump sum from you, or maybe it's not huge, but it's big to you and it was big to them, that money comes in. If there's taxes due, the taxes get paid, and then they spend the money, they use it for something, and it's kind of forgot about after several years. And the beauty of this is when we think more of a bequest, where you're leaving it to somebody that's not an adult son or daughter, but or your spouse, but it's a somewhat distant relative, a cousin, a nephew, a niece, somebody that was just a very dear friend that took care of you or helped you. To spread that out over 10 or 20 years or a lifetime means that they're going to be getting checks every month after you pass away. And it's kind of a cool thing to be getting a check from your deceased Aunt Mary. And so if you're the Mary who's not deceased yet, just think about this for a bequest. So there's lots of ways we can use this tool, and it doesn't really cost anything extra. So we can put money in an annuity. You still don't have to stick with this for the rest of your life. If you're the owner and putting the beneficiary in there, you can change this stuff, or you can go in and spend the money. If it's in an annuity or it's a life insurance with cash value, you can do all kinds of things all the way up to your death. So this is only binding on the beneficiary once you're deceased and they start receiving the money. So what I want to talk about is comprehensive financial planning. Is how does this fit, or the use of this form or the middle class trust in our financial planning? Well, we talked a little bit about Social Security checks in our example today. This is all about income. It's taking an asset or a hunk of money and turning it into an income for the beneficiary so that they don't have to worry about the management of it or the spending of it. They're just going to get checks. So that's income, recurring income. Estate planning, that's what the whole video is about, is you can use beneficiary designations to do a lot of your estate planning. And with that said, I want to bring Tom back on. I'm Hans Scheil.
And I'm Tom Griffith.
And we thank you very much for listening.
Thank you.